Room. It's indeed time for The World This Week, 7 days for Paris-based correspondents, 1 hour The World This Week in partnership with the International Herald Tribune. And our guest with us, Vivian Walt, contributor for Time magazine, just back from Cairo, I believe. We'll be talking about that a little bit later on. Also with us, Stéphane de Vries, Paris correspondent for RTL4, and excuse me, my Dutch isn't very good, but the title of your book is?
Onder mijn zolen in Dutch, and it means under my soul, so it's very close to English, actually.
And it is hot off the presses.
Yeah, today, actually.
And it's all about the Arab Spring, and
Absolutely.
we'll be obviously talking about what you found out a little bit later on. We have a guest star. He's usually in New York, John Rick MacArthur, publisher of Harper's Magazine, columnist for the Providence Journal, the Projo, right?
Right, the Projo, right.
And all right, explain this to me, because this book's in French. It's called An American Cast.
In Cast Américain, yeah, and I wrote it for a French publisher, and then in English, and then they translated it. It got published in the United States under the title "You Can't Be President," which is a catchy title.
And here the subtitle is the American elections
explained to the French. Right, exactly.
All right, and he's not only a fellow alum of the Lycée Français de New York, Harold Hyman, cracks the whip at the foreign desk at BFM TV, 24-hour news channel. Thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
The France 24 debate, which, by the way, you can follow on Facebook. We'll be reading some of your comments later. And on Twitter, our handle here, at FrancoisF24. Now, sometimes journalists get accused of fear-mongering. We at France 24 would never stoop to such lows. By the way, we could show you the cover of this week's Economist with the caption, "Until politicians actually do something about the world economy, be afraid." It really does seem, when you look at this, Harold, like there really is this sense every week now we are getting stuck in this sort of maelstrom. Is there going to be like a self-fulfilling prophecy this now, that you get the impression when you see, for instance, that there's all kinds of shuttling going on with the Greek prime minister in town, the French president heading for Germany, perhaps?
Well, my impression is that they're overdoing it, because they're dealing with the same crisis that's taking different forms every 3-4 months. So personally, I don't understand why they can't fix it in one big swoop, because Greece, frankly, is one of the smallest little pieces of Europe, if you exclude the newcomers like Estonia or Slovakia. And it just beats me how we should be that terrified that the Greek system will take down the whole European system. It's as if we said the banks in Miami will go bust, so the whole United States will go bust. So I react to that, be scared. I'm not scared. I'm a bit more puzzled.
A bit more puzzled. By the way, it's not just the press that's doing this. We could show you, for instance, one of the tweets of the economist, some call Dr. Doom, Nouriel Roubini, puts out on a nearly daily basis. So this is something from earlier in the week. U.S., Eurozone, UK sinking in a recession. Issue is no longer a double dip, or not, rather whether mild one or severe one with a new global financial crisis. Now, not everybody agrees with Nouriel Roubini. Brian on Twitter, if you say the same thing over the course of years, then yes, a broken clock will eventually display the correct time. Where do you think this is all going, Stéphane de Vries?
Well, I'm not afraid either. I mean, actually, I'm quite surprised by the cover of The Economist, because it's a very liberal magazine, and now all of a sudden they want the government leaders to step in. I thought they wanted the market to take care.
They want to spur growth.
Well, yes, but is that something the market should do, or the government leaders? And usually the Economist always stands behind the market, and so I'm not sure if they're turning into some kind of socialist, communist magazine, but it looks like it. I think it's all a little bit overrated. I mean, the crisis is already going on for 4 years. The Northern Rock debacle, and it was in 2007, August 2007. Then that's when it's all started. Of course, we didn't see it coming right away, and then came Lehman Brothers, then came the euro and the Greece and blah blah. And I agree totally with it. Greece is only 2.5% of the European economy, which is literally nothing. So we can bail out Greece tomorrow afternoon if we like to, because it's only about 300 billion that they own. So that's sounds like a lot of money, but it's money that we can pay, and it's only a matter of political will. And it's this political will that's completely absent right now.
You say it's political will. We saw a little bit of political will on Thursday in the German Bundestag. All smiles, the parliament overwhelmingly approving a plan to boost the Eurozone rescue fund. But again, that was Thursday, and just to show you, stocks plummeting on Friday, closing out what's been a brutal quarter for Europe's markets. The Frankfurt DAX index, for instance, down 26.5% over 3 months. French banks down 30% since August. This isn't smoke and mirrors. This is real, that chart.
That's what I was going to say. You're right when you say that they're overstating it, and by constantly overstating it and constantly stepping up to the, going up on the parapet to declare their determination to save the euro, to save Greece, like Merkel did yesterday, they raise expectations too high. They make too big a case out of it, and that inevitably leads to a loss of confidence. It's like when Obama came out and said we're a AAA country. Of course, that was a terrible gaffe, because every American knows that AAA means one level below the major leagues. Every American knows that.
It's a minor league baseball.
It's minor league baseball. It was a strange, unconscious mistake by him. Maybe he doesn't know baseball very well. But the market, as you recall, the market continued to plunge 500 more points as he was saying we're a AAA country. Don't pay any attention to what Standard & Poor's says about us. So I wonder about the political strategy, the intelligence of the political strategy of constantly making these dramatic statements like yesterday. Why was it necessary for Merkel to do that?
Well, she didn't make a dramatic statement. What happened was that the
And the-
Bundestag voted
right.
in favor of
I understand.
something that was agreed all over 2.5
There was
months
a-
ago.
in
already.
other words,
And that's,
right.
And that's the whole thing. I mean, 2.5 months ago in Brussels, that's what this was about yesterday in
And
Germany.
you say you go every Tuesday to
Yeah,
Brussels
I
to
do.
record a radio show.
Yes.
And do they get that sense of urgency?
Well, urgency in political terms is completely different than urgency in market terms, and that's the whole issue, actually. In July, there was an emergency summit on the euro, the 21st of July. I was there as well, and it was very peculiar to see. I assisted actually after at every summit. There are press briefings, usually of the head of state, sometimes of ministers, but in this case, I assisted at the press briefing of Nicolas Sarkozy right after the summit, and about 10 minutes later, I assisted at the press briefing of the Dutch Prime Minister, and he was telling exactly the opposite of what Nicolas Sarkozy just told 10 minutes before. And I asked the Dutch Prime Minister whether he was at the same table or even in the same room, and he said, yes, I was there. But so that shows how these European leaders are not even able to agree amongst each other and then tell something different.
I mean, it seems to me like this is actually exactly what Stefan says. This is the problem. It's not so much, will the global economy weather this particular storm? It's that the euro and the whole EU experiment, EU project is so unwieldy at this point. And the fact that you have one currency that can make or break the world economy now is kind of a very unsettling thing when you have so many different political agendas. And it's impossible to kind of herd all the sheep into one pen and decide exactly what everybody's going to do. And so it seems to me it's more of a kind of existential crisis that the European countries are having at this point.
All right, and it's not just the issue of how fast you get things done. There's also finger pointing, and not just within Europe. Yeah. In the run-up to the German vote, there was outrage on this side of the Atlantic directed at the U.S. president. This over a remark made Monday at a town hall meeting in Mountain View, California.
They have not fully healed from the crisis back in 2007 and never fully dealt with all the challenges that their banking system faced. It's now being compounded what's happening in Greece. So they're going through a financial crisis that is scaring the world, and they're trying to take responsible actions, but those actions haven't been quite as quick as they need to be.
Rick McCarthy, do you agree that Europe is scaring the world?
No, I think the United States is scaring the world. I think we've got to get our own house in order. You know, again, it interests me to read the reaction to the vote in Germany and Merkel's statement. It was on the front page of Le Monde today, you know, an editorial basically saying, thank God the Germans are serious about saving Greece. Again, to my mind, a bit of an overreaction. But no criticism, no overt criticism at least, of the United States. We don't have our house in order. We don't have our financial house in order. There hasn't been a serious attempt to reform the banking system. Derivatives are still being traded like popcorn. I mean, we have a crazy, still under-regulated system. You want to restore confidence to the world financial system? The United States, the world's biggest economy, has to get its reform in order and decide what it wants to do. It hasn't been. They kicked the ball. You know, they kicked it down the road. Remember, I mean, when they did the financial reform? Is it a year ago now? I'm sorry. The Dodd-Frank.
Dodd-Frank, yeah.
It's now a year and a half.
Yeah.
Roughly, they put off all the hard decisions, just like they're putting off all the hard decisions about the budget deficit.
Just to bounce off that,
Yeah.
it's as if the U.S. Is sort of a wild player at this game of cooking the books on a large scale, and Europe is very bad at it and doesn't know how to do it because the European Central Bank only worries about inflation and doesn't worry about the other thing that the Fed worries about. The Fed also has to, I think, increase employment.
That's a political choice.
It's a political choice that's built in,
Right.
so that and plus the Fed can buy treasury bonds, and the European Central Bank cannot buy, even though they began buying Greek bonds, which was completely outside of their remit. They started doing it, but it's very slight. So it's like they're really prudent dealing with this big monstrous problem, which is sort of an American-style problem, which in America we know how to deal with because we just, to simplify, print money indefinitely.
But it seems to me on top of that, you have, you know, the German Bundestag, of course, is going to vote for the fund because they have to. I mean, you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. However, the German voters, you know, are kind of thinking, well, why the hell are we bailing out these Greeks? So, you know, what do we have we have nothing in common with these people. There's no real sense of being, you know, one and the same, you know, people, whereas, you know, Californians do have some sort of connection with people who live in, you know, Arkansas or
I thought you'd say
Nebraska
New
or
York.
something, whatever, you know. I mean, there's some unifying force there. It seems a lot more tenuous in Europe at this point. I don't know what anyone else thinks.
And everyone's saying it'll either grow or fall apart. Now,
I'll just add one other thing: is that any discussion of sovereignty and the ability to, whether you can print money or not, buy bonds or not, use the central bank to create employment or not, these are important political issues because, of course, the right-wing movements in every country that want to get out of Europe or pull their countries out of Europe profit from this sort of from the disarray that's resulting from this crisis. And I'm not necessarily pro-Europe. I'm just saying that I don't like to see the far right or the National Front in France score points because the European Central Bank isn't permitted to do the sort of things that the Fed is permitted to do.
Well, we shouldn't listen to the far right anyway, because, you know, when the euro was introduced, it was rather weak. You know, they went in at the same parity. Well, it was about 117.
and it dropped
euro to
below,
dollar. Then it dropped.
80 cents.
And then I remember Madame Stirbois,
one of the leaders of the
one of the
National
leaders of the
Front,
National
to the far
Front, saying, "Look what a crummy
Yeah.
currency the euro
Right,
is.
right.
It's so weak."
Right.
And now they're saying,
too
"Look
strong.
what a crummy
It's too
currency
strong.
is.
Too
It's too
strong.
strong." So
There's an interesting, I don't know if this is really a side issue or actually part of the main problem. Pop artist Andy Warhol once predicted that in the future we could all be famous for 15 minutes. Now, who knew when this week began that Alessio Rastani would get a lot more than a quarter hour of fame? The unknown London day trader, this is what he claims he is, telling the BBC that the end is near And as a trader, he stands to profit from it.
Personally, I've been dreaming of this moment for 3 years. I have a confession, which is I go to bed every night, I dream of another recession. I dream of another moment like this. Why? Because people don't seem to maybe remember, but the 30s depression, the depression in the 30s, wasn't just about a market crash. There were some people who were prepared to make money from that crash. And I think anybody can do that. It isn't just for some people in the elite. Anybody can actually make money. It's an opportunity.
Alessio Rastani, thank you very much for talking to us.
Do you dream about the economy at night?
I try not to.
Yeah.
Nightmares.
18 minutes past 11.
Vivian Walt, what was amazing about that exchange was, and I feel for the presenters because it's tough when you're in that situation. What's amazing is they were really caught off guard by this.
Well, it seems to me, I mean, maybe I'm going to be like the bad kid at the table here, but it seems to me like the only shocking thing about this was that somebody went on a financial news show and actually said something newsworthy. You know, we are so kind of like, I think, brain dead from watching year in and year out these kind of talking heads of traders and investment analysts and this and that. Sort of talk 24 hours a day on these financial networks as the stock market crawl goes by the bottom, and might as well just watch it on mute. And here was somebody who came out, hoax or not, or whoever he is, and actually said pretty much what everybody knows, which is that there is a lot of money to be made when Main Street is suffering, Wall Street often booms. And we've known that for years. So I don't see what was shocking here.
Well, he just
Maybe
killed
I'm alone here.
capitalism, that's all.
Yeah, exactly. Buy low, sell high. Isn't that what it's all
No,
about?
he gave it a huge promotion because everybody wants to earn money, and now they're aware that they can, even in a crisis, they can still earn a lot of money.
We're going to pick up on this point because we've gotten a lot of feedback on this story. When we come back, we'll also take a look at what could be 12 more years of Vladimir Putin in Russia. Stay with us.